Well, happened again. The arranging video went way too long and is going to become a two-parter. So here is the second part of that, talking about embellishments and final polishing. Here we go. So now the next step is to learn the bass line that we chose really well, and to learn the melody and the pathway that we've chosen really well also. And we're going to start with hands separate, which means one hand at a time, and we're going to work both of those up until we're pretty comfortable, or more than pretty comfortable really, hands separate, before we start to put it back together, hands together. And so let's say if we worked it up to, I don't know, 120 beats per minute hands separate, right? And you got everything totally comfortable. Then we're going to drop it back down to half that, 60 beats a minute, and start hands together much slower. But that slower speed will give us the time to kind of think through each part as our hands now begin to work together. Now that we've got the core of the piece feeling really solid, we're going to start talking about adding some embellishments. Now, an embellishment is basically adding to what's already there. And this can be as small as playing the melody in octaves, or as large as, you know, completely reharmonizing the chords underneath the melody. But basically you're taking what's already there and changing or adding to it so that it's different the next time you present it. So let's look at a couple of options for adding some embellishments, right? Probably the most straightforward one is playing your melody in octaves. Pretty easy, right? Just got to make sure that you've got that octave technique solid. And that's a pretty common piano technique from, I don't know, as far as I can remember. And then it got co-opted for jazz guitar by Wes Montgomery. I mean, he was really the guy that kind of like brought that sound to the guitar. And it works perfectly well on the stick too. The harder version of that is playing everything in chords. This is called a chord melody, and guys who can make this sound smooth are so impressive to me. This is a really difficult technique. Yeah, not simple stuff. The trick with doing this is to make sure that your chords, the chord voicings that you choose, all kind of help outline the chord that you're playing over, right? So if I'm doing this A minor here, first I'm starting with an A minor voicing, and then I'm using an E minor as a passing chord, right? Before I return to another A minor, and then a C major, which is kind of saying A minor 7. And then when we wind up on that D, I've got a D minor in my right hand, and then this kind of D sus chord, or D minor 7 sus chord here, to return there, again with the D sus sound, and then when I get to the G, it's like a G9, and then to a C major 7. So each one of those chords kind of says, you know, aside from the melody note, the rest of the chord kind of says, hey, this is a voicing of the chord that I'm playing over. Again, not simple stuff. That's it really is the kind of thing that tests your knowledge of your instrument to do that. Another option is to take the melody and kind of improvise around it. I'm just kind of like adding notes in between the notes, and what I'm trying to do is kind of keep the strong notes, again, those thirds that kind of land and spell the chord, they just scream, that's the chord, on the downbeat usually. I'm trying to keep those in the same place, and then the longer notes give me space to kind of move around them. And if you want to give yourself like a 2.5 voice sound in the left hand if you're doing that walk, one method that I like to employ is to literally just use a free finger in between notes, kind of on the offbeat, to hit and fill out the rest of the chord as you're going along. And so all I'm doing is, kind of filling out the rest of the voicing based on the root note that I'm playing, right? So for this A minor, I'm playing that A classic stick A minor 7 or minor 7 voicing, but I'm not filling out these two notes until the end of 3. And then for the D minor, I'm just kind of playing the root and 5th above. And then for that G, I'm playing the 3rd and the 7th. And the same with the C. And I'm picking off notes, and that really imitates like guitar chords or horn stabs or, like a piano strike or something like that. And the nice thing about the bass side of the stick is that it's so broad in range because of the 5th tuning that it's really easy to do that. All you need is a single, 1 or 2 free fingers as you're walking a bass line, and you still have room to play the melody. Something that you might do with the right hand. Now do with your left hand and continue to play the melody. So we've got the melody, we've got our harmony, some bass lines, all that kind of stuff worked out. We've worked up our embellishments to the core of it. Now let's put it all together. And this is where some of that other stuff that we may have turned down previously will start to come in handy, right? An important thing about arranging is that, especially from a tune off of a lead sheet, like a jazz standard like Fly Me to the Moon, for instance, the important thing is that every time, you only have so much music, so every time you play through it, you can't just play 8 bars or 16 bars or whatever and then say, oh, that's the song. Like, that's very short, and that's not a lot. And at the same time, you can't just repeat the same thing over and over and over again. That gets very boring. So we've got all of these options, and now we want to start putting the song together. And we want to, keep it interesting by presenting the same stuff in new ways over and over again. And we also want to guide it. If we start at the craziest thing, with the walking bass line with the embellishments and a chord melody and stuff like that, and tons of melodic embellishments all over the place, like it's this giant thing, where do we go from there? So, the idea is it maybe start small, like whole notes with the melody as the first time through the A section, and then start doing like a half note walk for the B section, right? And then we're coming back to the A section again for the second time. Now we're doing a full quarter note walk, maybe with the melody in octaves or something. And then by the time we hit the B section again, now we're doing, a bit of a groove in the left hand, still with the octave melody. And then, we can play the A and B section grooved out and then improvise over it for a couple of turnarounds, right? And just take a solo using autopilot. And then finally, when we get to the last time through, we could do something like, I don't know, like do the chord melody in the right hand with a walking bass line in the left hand for the A section, and then we get to the B section, we do the melody in the bass now with chords in the right hand or something like that. I don't know. There are lots of different options, but the point is that you keep it fresh every time, right? So that's just some of the ways that I think about arranging, and I hope this was helpful. So give it a shot on your own. If you're picking up the exercises on my Patreon, I urge you to be creative and not just use what I put down, but use the concepts and come up with your own versions of those concepts. And yeah, I hope this helps with your arranging. Keep exploring. See you next time.